As you drive on rural roads, just like in urban settings, there's special things you have to look out for there. In the rural setting, there's special things you have to look out for as well. And so you might encounter you're going to encounter other vehicles, you might encounter animals, you might encounter farm vehicles, you might encounter things that you might not normally encounter on a city street, right? And so how do we adapt to those? How do we do things? Well, we're going to use a lot of the same techniques that we've used before, okay? One of the things that you might run into are slow-moving vehicles. A slow-moving vehicle typically is defined as something that cannot travel over 25 miles an hour. Those are going to be, especially in rural settings, those might be tractors, those might be large farm equipment, it might be trucks pulling trailers. Typically, they're going to have a slow-moving vehicle sign on it. You see that on the PowerPoint there. And so as you're driving up, you want to identify these slow-moving vehicles as quickly as possible. Like we've talked about earlier, the speed limit on rural roads tends to be 55. If you're traveling 55 and there's a car traveling 25 or a truck traveling 25, as you approach it, you're closing that gap pretty quickly, right? And so the sooner that you can recognize that there's a slow-moving vehicle, the easier it is and the safer it's going to be for you and for that other vehicle. Once you notice that, you need to slow down, okay? A lot of times these slow-moving vehicles, they might be wide, they're carrying heavy loads, like whatever it is, you're going to be the one that slows down. If you run into them, for the most part, they're going to win, right? If you run into a tractor, the tractor's going to beat you, okay? But once you approach, you need to stay far enough back as well, okay? That gives you the chance to check for traffic, and then if you need to pass, you're able to pass, all right? Another thing you run across in rural settings, which you do in city settings and urban settings as well sometimes, okay? These are animals, all right? Animals can become frightened very easily. They're going to be on the side of the road. They're going to be grazing for food. And so as cars are going by at high speeds, sometimes they get frightened and they end up running out, they get disoriented, and they run out into the road. I was driving the driver's ed car one day. I had a student in the car with me, right? We see a group of deer up on the side of the road, and what do, right? We have to slow down, right? We have to come to a stop, okay? We have to try to get those animals and see what those animals are going to do. Hopefully we startle them and they run off into the woods, but we may startle them and they run into the road. When you see one animal, you typically are going to have more animals. Large animals are going to cause damage to your vehicle if you hit them. A deer is going to cause damage to your vehicle, especially depending on the speed. The faster you go, the more damage it's going to be. Certain times of year, you're going to see animals more frequently on the side of the road, it seems like, than others. And so be aware of that. Okay, as you drive back and forth in the country especially, you're going to know, hey, there's a lot of deer on this road. Okay, well, if I'm driving down Sidbury Road or I'm driving down 210, like I'm always on the lookout for deer. So my search process doesn't just include the road in front of me. It really never does, right? I'm also beginning to look at the road beside me. I'm looking to see, are there eyes? That's really what I'm looking for, the eyes of animals as they're looking at me. Because that tells me they're there. That might be the only way I can see them, is the reflection of their eyes in my headlights. Have your brights on unless you've got traffic coming at you. That's going to help you illuminate a little bit more of the road, see a little bit clearer, okay? And kind of be aware of what's behind you. Right. If you see an animal, all right, begin to come to a stop. One thing that you want to be careful of, though, is that you do not necessarily want to swerve. Okay, if you got a car right behind you, you might not want to slam on brakes. You've got to weigh, what is the worst case scenario here? Is it worse to hit the animal, or is it worse to get hit from behind by the vehicle behind me? Okay, don't swerve. Like, don't swerve across the center line, because then you might be putting yourself at danger there. All right, hit your brakes, slow yourself down. Try to avoid the animal, but do not swerve all over the road trying to miss it. Oncoming traffic, okay? Oncoming traffic can be dangerous, okay? In a rural road, on a 2-lane road, there's not much space that separates you. It might, especially if it's a larger vehicle, but it might be coming across the line, right? You don't have a lot of space. You don't have a whole lot of leeway. And so pay attention to oncoming traffic, right? What you want to try to do is, if you see oncoming traffic, you're not necessarily always going to want to slow down or stop and wait until I can get by you, right? But you do want to make sure, right, that you have yourself away and you know what you're going to do if something were to go wrong. If you're looking just like in an urban setting, if you see a car crossing that center line, you don't necessarily want to go by it, right? You're going to want to try to figure out, okay, well, can I slow down? Can I make sure, make sure it sees me? Can I blow my horn? Do whatever you've got to do. All right, slow moving vehicles, like I said, sometimes you're going to it might be meeting a tractor. Okay, tractors might be wider than the road. All right, they might be carrying a piece of equipment that is wider than their lane. Okay, and so as you approach that, you've got to be aware of that. All right, check to make sure that there's not a car coming around that's trying to pass it. I think, out on the road, one of the things, and where I live, we got tractors, but you might have a UPS truck, you might have the mail truck, right? And a lot of times you're driving down the road and you see the UPS truck and he's kind of stopped on the side of the road and you see somebody trying to dart by and pass him in what should be a no passing zone. I have to be careful of that, right? I've got to make sure that there's not going to be somebody that's running into me as I'm in my lane passing a slow moving vehicle. At night, another situation that's tough. At night, you've got to make sure your windshield is clean, okay? Because headlights reflecting off your windshield, a dirty windshield, can seriously impair your ability to see, okay? As you're driving, as you're coming around a curve, you might be able to see headlights in the tree. If you're coming over a hill, you might be able to see the shine of the headlights over the hill. That warn you that there's cars coming. All right, if you're in the rural area and you don't have cars coming at you, you should be running with your headlights, your high beams on, okay? If you see that a car's coming, turn your high beams off. As you approach a turn, you can actually flash your high beams. That will let anybody coming from the other side know that, hey, there's a car here, okay? Your high beams should go off anytime within 500 feet of an approaching vehicle. Some cars now do that automatically. A lot don't though, right? So make sure you do not want to ride with your high beams on if a car is coming at you, because those high beams can actually blind that vehicle, making it hard for them to tell where the lines are, where your vehicle actually is, and put both of you in danger. All right? A car is coming at you, don't look directly into their headlights. Okay? When you got a car coming at you at night, kind of glance at the line on the side of the road. Pick you a point to look at so you're not looking in their headlights, so you're not getting blinded. Railroad crossings. Railroad crossings can be one of the most dangerous things, and they are one of the most dangerous things for teenagers in the state of North Carolina. Okay, when you approach a railroad crossing, sometimes you're going to have controls. All right, you have gates, you have flashing lights, but sometimes, especially in the country, you don't. In Pender County, we actually do not have any live railroad tracks that cross any of our roads. All right, other counties around us do. And in a lot of those counties, in terms of teenage road deaths, vehicular deaths, the trains have a big part of that. Okay, make sure that you are not sitting on the tracks. Make sure that you are not passing people on tracks. Trains in the country tend to drive relatively quickly. They don't have to worry about noise and those types of things. And so they're moving pretty quick at times. All right. And so be prepared to stop. Make sure that you're looking and you're listening. Okay. To make sure if you come to an intersection, a train track that does not have any kind of signaling on it, make sure that you're making sure that a train's not coming. Listen for the train. Roll your window down. Turn your music off. All right. Slow down as you approach it. Make sure that you look and you can see that you've got a safe path of travel. All right, a train will always win if you get into a collision with it. Guaranteed. You're going to have a couple of pictures and videos up of trains hitting cars. You will not win. Okay? If for some reason your car gets stuck on a train track, train is coming, get out. You're not going to be a hero. Okay? You don't want to be a statistic. Get out of the car. If you have to abandon your car, okay, get out and go kind of in the direction the train is coming. All right, kind of away from the track, but in the direction the train is coming, because once that train hits your car is going to splinter into shrapnel. And you don't want to be on that side of it. You want to be behind your vehicle at that point in time.